Okay, first time watching this. I don't know if this is legit or fake, but let's watch it. See if I can get a better understanding of Dandy's world since I've been playing a lot of Dandy's world. Let's go.
Roblox is at it again. Move over, doors. There's a new horror game in town that's taking the internet and our subreddit by storm, and its name is Dandy's
Also, the
World.
subreddit is
But
big,
don't
huh?
trust that smile for a minute, friends, because behind it is a sad and broken character who ruined the lives of his friends, his creators, and the very studio we're exploring.
So it's a studio setting.
Hello, internet. Welcome to Game Theory, the show that just can't get enough black goo. Think about it. Bendy, Doors, Welcome Home, Bob Mod, FNAF, all of them have a black, goopy thing that leads to one thing. Oh, we should probably just plug it into my veins at this point. But alas, HR won't let me do it. And given it's been a while since my last black goopy hit, when I saw our subreddit blowing up with a game called Dandy's World that also had its own black goo, I was very excited to gobble up whatever sticky dark lore this thing had to offer.
Oh,
On
no.
the surface, Dandy's World is a multiplayer survival horror game on Roblox. The game itself takes place in an abandoned educational
It is
center
very
and
popular.
museum called the Garden View Center. We play as these little creatures known as toons. Our job is to hop into the elevator with some friends and complete various tasks, while collecting items that can be traded into the lead character Dandy to unlock even more toons to play as. But as you might expect, we're not the only things creeping around these empty halls. The deeper we go, the more we start to get a sense of what happened to this place once filled with the sounds of children's laughter and joy. What happened to this beloved place to shutter its doors, and why it has suddenly come back to life with evil versions of the toons known as Twisted. So
Yeah, the
trying
Twisteds.
desperately to stop us, dripping with that delightful black goo. There it is. Nom, 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 nom. Oh, that's the good stuff.
Oh,
So,
no.
Step into the elevator, loyal theorists, because we're gonna get to the bottom of what's really going on in Dandy's World and its smiling rainbow flower mascot. The history of the Garden View Center actually starts with this note that you can find if you don't
Personal
die to
loan
the various
application?
Twisteds chasing you around the various floors. It's an application for a business loan dated 1984. From this, we can see that the Garden View Center is the brainchild of two young visionaries, Henry Stein and Joey Drew. Wait, no, I meant Delilah Keene and Arthur Walton. Although the connections between these two and Bendy definitely keep going. Thanks to a note sketched out by Arthur, we can tell that he was the one who originally designed the look of the toons. As for Delilah, she was a bit more sus. After seeing the sketch of the lead character Dandy, she writes back to Arthur saying,
What about the others? You said he had friends. Yes? I'll need them. Respond ASAP. By the way, out of coffee. Get more. Also ASAP.
uh-oh, if she's anything like me without my morning coffee, things are about to get real bad. Even worse if she's like Santi. But despite the clearly ominous language, Arthur doesn't seem fazed, saying,
You've never
Okay.
failed me before, Delilah.
Then, in a recent update, the developers added these portraits of Garden View's two founders. Arthur is dressed to the nines. I tip my hat to you, sir. And Delilah is covered
Oh my
in
god.
blood.
I haven't
See,
seen
Arthur,
those pictures.
This is how it starts. And then you decide to leave, and your business partner creates an inky dimension inside their apartment, which is meant to house an inky version of you that they can torture for all eternity. It's a tale as old as time. Although this black goo is a little different to the living ink from Bendy. It's called ichor. And not only can we find this black goo all over the place during the game, but when you
Yeah,
get
they
caught
get
by
it.
a Twisted, your toon explodes into the stuff. It's almost like
Oh.
the Roblox PG safe version of blood. And the name certainly lends itself to that line of thinking. Ichor isn't just a made-up word. It comes from what is very quickly becoming my favorite thing to talk about on this channel. Say it with me now. Greek mythology. I wonder why
Really?
there's so much of this in indie horror these days. Probably a theory for another day. So
I didn't
make sure
know it
you
was linked to
ink-smack
that.
subscribe button like your life depends on it, because it just might. Anyway, the ancient Greeks believed that instead of having blood coursing through their veins, the gods had a mysterious substance known as ichor. They also believed that if a normal human were to come into contact with ichor, they would die instantly. So that's it? Ichor is just the blood of the toons? Oh no, my friends, there is a lot more going on here. Because ichor is also this game's form of currency. We collect more
Yeah, you
and
do
more of
collect
this
it.
stuff as we descend further into the levels of the Garden View Center. But what do we use this precious ichor to purchase? More toons to play as from Dandy's shop. Almost as if ichor isn't just the blood that's coursing through them, but it's actually what is used to make the toons. And given the notes and photos we found from earlier, while Arthur was the one who originally designed the toons, it was Delilah who brought them to life using the ichor. I guess it really is just the ink machine after all. And similarly, it has an unfortunate side effect. correct. You see, as you play and encounter more of the Twisted Toons, you unlock research that gives you more lore about each character. Several of the research entries mention that it's the Ichor, and more specifically being overcome by Ichor, that turns these happy-go-lucky Toons into the twisted monsters they are now. That
Okay,
also
so they do
explains
get
why all of
corrupted.
the Twisteds can be seen with Ichor pouring out of every orifice. They are literally so full of the stuff, it's leaking out of them. So then, if this stuff is so volatile, why make Toons to begin with? As I mentioned, Arthur and Delilah get their loan in 1984, and from there, they set up the Garden View Center as a children's educational center and museum. What it was a museum of back in 1984 is unclear exactly.
Fossils?
But
No,
based on two
because there's
Polaroid
fossils.
photos dated 1988, what is clear is that these characters were originally designed as a selling point for the center. Unlike other attractions, the Garden View Center didn't have just people in mascot costumes or cuddly animatronics. They had living, breathing versions of the Toons that kids could come and meet. We all know how well that goes. Although it appears as time went on, these characters became popular beyond just the center. Despite this place looking abandoned for years, there are a bunch of posters still lining the walls that give us some interesting details. First off, they made me realize that my own office walls were somehow looking more barren than an abandoned facility, almost as if someone had come and stolen everything before I moved in. Thankfully, our good friends at Displate saw my plight and offered to
this place is
sponsor
actually pretty
episode to
good.
help
I
me
like
out.
the.
Now, instead of just
I'm
looking
planning on getting
into
one
the
of them.
void of yellow reminding me of the man who ransacked my office,
I think it's the
I'm met
metallic
with
posters.
high-quality metal posters.
Yeah,
with
metal
faces
posters.
from some of my favorite franchises like Crash Bandicoot, Spider-Man, and Spyro. And unlike regular posters, they're not gonna fade or tear ever.
Yeah,
so I
it's
can
a
continue
metal.
to stare at
It's
my
a metal
beautiful
plate,
blue
which is
boy
really
until the
cool.
death of the universe. But even if I did decide it was time to look into another character's eyes longingly, Displate has made it super easy thanks to 1, their catalog of over 2 million pieces to choose from, plus their
I need to get
extra
myself
style
one, actually.
posters, which add a nice tactile texture and 3D contours, making it easy to find that little bit of style this room has
yes,
really
put-
been missing.
yes,
But 2,
could-
their
yeah,
unique
yes, put a magnet.
technology that allows me to take the old one off the wall and put a new one up. Simple.
And you
no
can
holes,
swap
no
'em.
drilling
Yeah,
ever,
that's
which is
what's
great
so cool
because
about
I'm
'em.
not much of a handyman, and I'm not sure Justin would be too thrilled if this place started looking like Swiss cheese. Although it would make sense with the yellow. And the best part, Display is currently offering you theorists an incredible discount. If you buy 1 to 2 posters, you're getting yourself 25%
I don't know how
off.
much
If
they
you
go
order
for. I
3
think it
or more
depends on the
posters,
size
you're
and
getting
stuff.
a massive 35% off, which means you'll have plenty of money left over to plan any revenge plots against a rogue employee that keeps stealing your stuff. You know, hypothetically. Just use my code theorists to get your hands on that special discount and some really awesome posters. Or you can just click the link in the description, which will automatically apply your code at checkout. Thanks again to Display for sponsoring this video, but it's probably about time we get back to what's lining the walls of the Garden View Center. In every
Yeah,
corner
there's
of the Garden View
pictures and
Center,
a
there
bunch
are
of stuff that I
CRTs
do
playing
not
a TV
understand,
show
and also
full of
TV shows.
lovable Toons who might look a little familiar. There are also posters of the different episodes of this show, along with the dates they originally aired, hung up on the many walls of the building. This show is Dandy's World, and the earliest date we see for the show is for the episode Snowy Adventure, which aired on Christmas 1990. 2 years after the earliest date we know these Toons to have existed. The Garden View characters became so popular that they eventually created a show. The show wasn't just about the many adventures of Garden View, though. If you take a look around the place, you can actually find storyboards for the show. If you don't know, storyboards are essentially what TV, movies, and even gaming studios will use to plan out a sequence of events
for the
and
stories.
the shots that they will need to capture or draw for any given project, meaning that this show was actively being worked on here at the Garden View Center. This wasn't just a place where kids could come to learn and play, it was also a TV studio. And as I realized that, I couldn't help but be reminded of a certain other TV studio slash theme park from the real world that was popular around the same time. A studio that, in itself, was also famous for its use of a slimy substance. Nickelodeon Studios.
Really?
If
Nickelodeon?
you're not old enough to know what I'm talking about, I don't blame you. I'm barely old enough to remember. But when you work for TV studios like Fox and Disney, you get very familiar with the history of competing studios. Nickelodeon Studios was part of the wider Universal
They had a
Studios in
theme
Orlando,
park? I did
Florida.
not know
Much
they
like
had
the
a theme
Garden
park,
View
though.
Center, it was both a place for kids and a working studio. Classic Nick shows like Double Dare, Legends of the Hidden Temple, and the early seasons of all that were all filmed at Nickelodeon Studios.
I don't know none
So
of
the fun
those.
part was, people that were coming for the theme park side to keep their kids entertained could also sign up to come and see their favorite shows get made. If you were lucky enough, you had the chance of being in the audience to watch these shows being made live.
Make the Grade was produced before a live audience in Nickelodeon Studios at Universal.
Yeah, I have no idea about
in
this.
Orlando, Florida.
And of course, we can't forget about the slime. Nickelodeon and their
Yeah, I
patented
didn't
green
know
slime
about that
go
at
together
all.
like peanut butter and jam. Sorry, jelly. No, if iCore is supposed to be Garden View's version of slime, that would make Double Dare a whole lot more morbid. This idea of live studio filming is exactly what we're seeing happening in the Garden View Center. While the clips for the TV show are definitely cartoons, the characters themselves are toons, and they talk as if
And
these
they're
events
alive.
were real events that really happened.
Oh.
For example, one of the episodes of the Dandy's World TV show was called Winning Big, and it features a toon named Scraps on a game show, well, Winning Big, with the show being hosted by another toon, V. But despite this presumably happening on a fictional TV show, the actual V and Scraps have memories of this event. In one of the dialogues that can happen
Oh, so
among
whatever
the
happens in the
characters
cartoon
between
is their
levels, V and Scraps
memories?
say this.
Hey V, you're not mad at me for winning all of your game show prizes, right, V? I'm gonna take that as a yes.
In another set of dialogue, V claims Scraps' victory on the game show was down to pure luck. It doesn't really make much sense that V would be so salty about what happened on a TV show about her. Instead, it's more likely that she is mad because it really happened. These toons are more than just live action characters for the kids to meet. They were the performers that starred in the show. And those kids who were touring the center would have the chance to watch the show being recorded live. And I use the word would have very specifically. The show was a massive success. We know that by 1990, Dandy's World was on the air and ran for over a decade. But as with all indie horror histories, the winning streak couldn't last forever. The final episode of the show was planned for July 21st, 2002. But from what we can tell, it never actually made it to air because according to the city newspaper, on June 24th, 2002, the Garden View Center closed its doors. The last aired episode we know
closed.
about was from
Pebble
2001, which
Days on.
again lines up with what we saw from the Nickelodeon
The last cartoon was with
studio
Pebble?
began to lay off
Oh my
staff
God.
that same year, 2001, and the game shows being produced there had production halted, while Nickelodeon Animation continued in other locations, which is another reason why I feel like Dandy's World was being produced as a live-action production. If there was just another animated cartoon, we'd likely see
Pebble's
remnants
Day
of the
Out.
show still going on, but as it stands, the show stopped at the same time the studio did. However, compared to Nick Studios' closure being due to the heavy shift in animation and the increase in shows needing to be filmed in Los Angeles, Garden View's closure was a little more mysterious. According to that same newspaper, it was
Okay.
shut down due to a quote malfunction incident, which, as we all know, is indie horror corporate speak for our creation turned on us and tried to kill everyone. It's even more suspicious
Did it?
when the creator, Arthur, was asked to comment and chose to remain silent, especially when behind the scenes he makes it abundantly clear that he knew exactly what was going on. He writes in a letter to his longtime business partner Delilah,
Delilah, we need to talk. I know you've kept reassuring me that what had happened wasn't due to anything you had done. You had to have known this could happen to him. If you did, why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you tell me? Something like this doesn't just happen.
that him that Arthur is referring to, the one that something happened
Is
to,
it
the
Dandy?
one that malfunctioned, I believe, is none other than the star of the show,
Dandy
our titular
himself?
flower, Dandy. Let me explain. Ever since Garden View Center closed down, several of the other toons have talked about how uneasy they feel around him. And we don't have to take their word for it. We can see it for ourselves in-game. In between levels, Dandy pops up in the elevator to sell you power-ups.
Yeah,
to make
his
your run
face always
easier. But if you
shifts and
instead choose
changes.
to not buy from him, Dandy starts to get more and more frustrated. If you continue to ignore him, things become less fine and dandy, and he'll have a full-blown meltdown. He will turn into his twisted form, and you'd better watch out because he'll soon spawn on an upcoming level to hunt you down. Dandy
Yeah, I
is a
experienced
loose
that
cannon,
already.
ready to snap at any moment if he doesn't get his way. Based on my years of indie horror experience, my hunch is that this is what happened on the day of the malfunction. Dandy was the first creation, Arthur's main guy, but unlike the others, we're being shown that he can transform into a Twisted rather than just being a Twisted, which lines up with the idea that this mascot malfunctioned, transforming into a Twisted and created an incident that got the entire place shut down. And that hunch proved to be correct when I found his research data. It says, quote, the star of the show, the one who runs the iCore operation, it's all his fault. Everything we're experiencing, the abandoned studio taken over by monsters, the studio shutting down leading to this point, it's all Dandy's fault. However, the reason for for Dandy's snap isn't quite as simple as you might think. With Dandy being the primary mascot in a mascot horror game, it would be easy to just assume he's purely evil. Maybe the fame got to him, maybe he cracked under the pressure, but eventually was overcome by the power of the I-Core and became pure evil. But
Did he
that isn't
overconsume the
There's a
I-Core?
little bit of audio storytelling that you might have missed while playing through the game yourself. When Twisted Dandy chases you in-game, a song plays that you've no doubt heard before, but probably never knew the name of. This song is called Claire de Lune, and it's based off an 1869 poem by Paul Verlaine. A poem about someone who looks happy on the outside, but deep down is sad. Quote, playing the lute and dancing and all, but sad beneath their fantasy disguises. This song is telling us what Dandy, and also his friends, are. They are these picture-perfect, happy, smiling toons performing for the joy of others, but deep down, they're sad. And they're sad because of what we saw during the Christmas update last year. According to another set of letters, after Christmas had passed, some of the
So it's an ongoing story.
was doing the whole Blair Witch thing and hiding in the corner. Delilah's response was basically, Christmas is over, just throw them into storage till next year. Even though the toons are alive, they were being abused by their handlers and treated like props. Only good for the thing they were made for and nothing else. Behind their smiles were sad and lonely creatures. Dandy's dialogue when he thinks you're ignoring him at the shop matches this.
We're friends here, right? Friend? What is happening?
He's confused, he's scared, he is terrified that he too has lived past his usefulness. That if he is no longer the star, that he and his friends face the same fate as those Christmas toons. And my guess is, that's exactly what happened on that fateful day in 2001. Dandy saw how his friends were being treated. He got scared. He didn't want to be ignored, to be forgotten, to no longer be the star. And as a result, he became overcome by the I-Core and ultimately caused all the toons to be locked away forever, a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why, as his research report says, he has restarted the I-Core project. It's not because he's trying to build an army of evil toons to take over the world,
himself, so it's like an abandoned place.
Who wronged him. He's trying to atone for his
Oh,
sins.
and that's why there's
He and
only
his friends lost
toons.
everything, and it's all his fault. Now he's trying to bring the show back to life. He specifically keeps asking you to find and collect and give him the VHS tapes of the show, and he's using the I-Core to create more toons. Maybe, just maybe.
So that's
if all the
why
toons
you
come
always
back, so too will the
respond.
fans, the
Okay.
kids, the show, and Dandy can once again be the star he was literally born to be. But he is not the original creator. He's not Delilah. He doesn't know how to use the I-Core.
Where's
properly.
Delilah and the
He's
other guy
using
now?
too much, and so all of his toon friends are ending up as twisted monsters. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Yeah, that was
World
interesting.
premiere on Game Theory.
Seeks rise from random entity.
Okay, we're gonna stop there. Okay, that's interesting. I got a lot more information about Dandy's World than I could have hoped. Okay, that's an interesting story. So it's still being developed because the game is still in alpha, and apparently, well, they can add any more tunes later on and add to the story. We could find more letters, more notes, more information bit by bit, and the story might develop into something really cool. So, all right, and I got more info on Dandy's World now. Hopefully, I can find more videos. Maybe I'll find a video that explains the research. Game theory never misses. Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, that's why I like watching their videos, especially when I want to go into deep lore.